Good morning, everyone. My name is Crystal McDonald. I'm the Associate State Director of Advocacy for AARP New Jersey. I hate waiting in line, and that might be why they let me go first today. But I live near Point Pleasant, so I'm used to lines. The Parkway, the boardwalk, you name it. But the line that's always the most deceivingly long is at the pharmacy counter. I know many of you have experienced this before. You're in the pharmacy line. There's only 3 or 4 people in front of you, but the line doesn't move. And unlike on the Parkway, you're not shouting and honking your horn. Instead, you're politely trying not to hear the uncomfortable conversation between the pharmacist and the unlucky customer up front. They didn't know the prescription was going to be so expensive. Or the price has jumped tremendously from last time. Or they can't put it on auto refill because they don't know if they can afford next month's supply. Maybe some of you in this room have been that person. I know I have. High prescription drug prices hit older Americans particularly hard. 2 out of 3 New Jersey voters, 50 plus, are concerned they can't afford the prescriptions they need in the future. I am proud to stand up here today on behalf of AARP New Jersey with Governor Murphy, Speaker Coughlin, Senator Vitale, Senator Singleton, who I'm imagining right here, Assemblyman McKeon, and Assemblyman Fryman, who also joined by New Jersey Citizen Action and our friends from the Affordable Drugs Coalition, who all agreed that this is not right. Throughout the course of the campaign that led us here today, I have met countless advocates and heard from hundreds of AARP members about the struggles they face and the choices they make between their medications, paying rent, buying groceries, and meeting other critical needs. If you followed this campaign, you may have met many of them. Pat was diagnosed with cancer and had to work past her planned retirement to afford her life-saving treatments. A volunteer who has since passed and his wife had over 20 prescriptions and made choices about when to cut doses and which of their bills to prioritize. Lenore was a loving family caregiver for her mother and paid for her mom's medications out of her own pocket, sacrificing by skimping on her own groceries, going without heat, and eventually losing her home. Patty developed a food allergy as an adult, and her EpiPen went from $100 to $600 in 10 years. How can the price of life-saving medications be so unpredictable and unaffordable? Well, I'm happy to say that the legislation being enacted today will take a major step forward in answering that question and giving our state the action steps to achieve affordable prescriptions. S1615 will require all members of the pharmaceutical supply chain to share pricing data and establish a drug affordability council to review the data and give expert recommendations on how the state can lower drug prices. This is good for everyone. It means we can see if the prices of medications are just and reasonable, and if not, take action to achieve affordability. We know Americans pay 3 times more than other countries for the same medications. It's about time we find out why. S1614 will cap out-of-pocket expenses for insulin, asthma inhalers, and EpiPens for those New Jerseyans covered by state-regulated insurance. This means a lot to my family. My daughter, Maddie, was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes about 1.5 years ago. She's 3 now, and she's a tough cookie. But this means she'll need a slow drip of insulin all day long, plus extra for every meal and snack she eats. As she grows, the more insulin she'll need. And as she gets older, she's eventually going to age out of my insurance. And like every parent, I think about her future and the choices she'll have to make and the choices she might not get to make because she will need to find a way to afford that medication. Capping the cost of insulin and these other life-saving medications is a relief for me, for her, and for so many New Jerseyans across the state, including the over 620,000 people living with diabetes. I am very proud to stand with you all to enact this meaningful prescription drug reform. On behalf of AARP's 1 million members, all New Jerseyans, and Maddie, I'd like to thank Senator Singleton, Assemblyman McKeon, Senator Vitale, Speaker Coughlin, and our Governor, Phil Murphy, for the dedication and steadfastness in getting this over the finish line. And of course, a huge thank you and congratulations to our volunteers and our fellow advocates who never let up. And with that, I'd like to welcome Governor Phil Murphy.
I just said to Crystal, that's a tough act to follow, a tour de force. I want to come back to you, Crystal, in a moment, but before we get into what we have planned for today, I wanted to give a quick update on the situation in Port Newark aboard the cargo ship. Due to the extraordinary, I emphasize that word, efforts of our first responders, I'm happy to report that as of last evening, the main body of the fire aboard the ship has been extinguished and contained, I think may be a better word. So, current firefighting efforts are now focused on cooling down the ship's deck to prevent any reignition. In addition, the ship's listing has been reduced and is now approximately 2 degrees. The danger zone is 5 to 6 degrees. We continue to monitor the air quality and are testing the water quality as well. I cannot thank our firefighters and first responders enough. Crews first began battling this fire on Wednesday evening, and they worked tirelessly through the weekend to get this blaze under control, and they had to overcome some extraordinarily difficult conditions. As I said last week, the fact that this fire was aboard a ship made for a very complicated situation. Yet our first responders adapted and rose to the occasion, and once again they have proven that we have the world's best, bless you, firefighters and first responders, and we all marvel at their remarkable skill, professionalism, and courage. But sadly, we continue to mourn the loss of Augusto Augie Akabu and Wayne Bear Brooks Jr., the 2 Newark firefighters who gave what President Abraham Lincoln called, and I quote the president, the last full measure of devotion. Please keep their memory and their families in your prayers. And may God watch over not just their families, but all of our first responders and firefighters. So back to why we're here. Crystal, that was an awesome, let's hear it one more time for Crystal McDonald. I also want to commend all of your fellow members of AARP New Jersey. They're easy to spot in their red T-shirts this morning. And Laura Waddell, who we'll hear from in a little bit, and all of her colleagues at New Jersey Citizen Action who are with us today. Each of those groups and each of you individually have been extremely instrumental in helping to support our seniors and hardworking families. As Crystal alluded, we are joined by an all-star lineup of legislators. You'll hear from him next, the Speaker of the General Assembly, Craig Coughlin. On the Senate side, Governor Dick Cody, Senator Joe Vitale. We have Assembly members Angela McKnight, Annette Quijano, Roy Fryman, John McKeon. We're in your hometown. Thanks for hosting us. Paul Moriarty. Paul, where'd you go? You're right there. Nice to see you. I think you got the award for the longest schlep this morning to West Orange. I want to give all of them special recognition because of their leadership and their compassion. That's what got us here today. So I cannot thank our legislative colleagues enough for their partnership. And as you rightfully pointed out, in absentia, I was just texting back and forth with him this morning. Senator Troy Singleton, work prevents him from being with us, but he and John and I remember, I don't know when it was, we kicked this thing off in Troy's district many, many months ago, and I want to add his name to that. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank, I might add, all of the pharmacists here for their skill and dedication to keeping us healthy. We also are being hosted by West Orange Mayor Susan McCartney. Susan, thank you so much. This is one of the quintessential great New Jersey communities. We also have our Acting Director of Consumer Affairs, Carrie Face, Acting Commissioner of the Department of Banking and Insurance, Justin Zimmerman, and the head of our Office of Healthcare Affordability and Transparency, a title that rolls off your tongue, Shabnam Salih, who's been playing an incredibly important role in making healthcare more affordable in our state, and many other advocates and outstanding individuals who helped us get to today. So today we're proud to announce several major steps that will lower prescription drug costs for hardworking New Jerseyans and seniors. We heard folks like Crystal and her colleagues loud and clear when they said the prescription drug costs had gotten out of control, and we are here today to deliver relief. The unfortunate truth is that Americans pay more for prescription drugs than anybody else. A think tank study found that on average we pay 2.5 times more for prescription drugs than any other developed nation. So last year, as a key part of our affordability agenda, as I mentioned, alongside Troy and Joe was with us and John McKeon, I called on our legislature to bring these costs down, and they did just that, and that brings us to today. So first up, we are proud to announce that we are capping out-of-pocket costs for insulin, EpiPens, and asthma inhalers. These are shamelessly fishing for applause. These are life-saving medications that people depend on and need regularly. So we will be capping a month's worth of insulin at $35, EpiPens at $25, and asthma inhalers at $50. Hi, Phyllis. Ladies. These caps will apply to anyone on a state-regulated health plan or a public employee health plan. So this will provide immediate relief for families who have watched helplessly as prices for these critical medications shot up as much as threefold over the last decade. Second, we are reining in costs from the middlemen by strengthening oversight of pharmacy benefit managers, the third-party companies that manage many prescription drug plans. More specifically, we're going to eliminate bad business practices that drive up costs like spread pricing, where pharmacy benefit managers charge health plans more for a medication than what they pay the pharmacy for it, so they can pocket the difference. We're also going to require these companies to apply for a license with the Department of Banking and Insurance so we can keep a better eye on them. For too long, this critical part of the prescription drug supply chain has operated in the dark, and it is time that we shine a light on things. And third and finally, we are ensuring transparency across the entire supply chain by creating one of the most comprehensive reporting systems to date anywhere in America, meaning companies will have to report price increases and high launch prices, along with other data that will allow us to monitor and report trends to keep the public informed. We know that bringing the light of day into the process helps keep companies honest and prices down, because other states that have enacted similar drug transparency programs saw major declines in the number of drugs with big price increases. This also allows us to take a good look under the hood so we can fix what needs fixing. And to help us do that, we will bring together a council of experts to review the data and make recommendations on where we can do more. So with these three laws in place in just a few minutes, millions of New Jerseyans will feel the effects on their pocketbooks in the short term through immediate consumer relief, and in the long term as we build the foundation for transparency and accountability into the system. I mentioned that other states have taken similar steps. Shadnan tells me and assures me that no state has taken the steps as it relates to transparency and getting under the hood as New Jersey is taking. These laws will build on our existing efforts to reduce drug costs for consumers. Last year, we made an additional 20,000 seniors eligible for the popular pharmaceutical assistance to the aged and disabled, otherwise known by the acronym PAD, and to our senior gold discount programs, which help pay for prescription drugs and Medicare premiums. And our latest budget helps even more seniors join PAD by raising eligibility caps, and it includes investments for outreach programs to eligible seniors to ensure that they are enrolled. For too long, hardworking families and seniors have been pushed to the limit as prices for essential medications increased, and it has been especially hard on those with fixed incomes, like those living right here, I might add. We have folks who are forced, as Crystal alluded to make heartbreaking decisions for themselves and their families, choosing between rent or food or medicine. And as many as 1 in 4 residents in our state are stretching their medication as far as it will go, skipping doses, cutting pills in half, or in some cases not even filling prescriptions. We cannot simply accept this as a matter of fact. As the late Senator Ted Kennedy once said, and I quote him, "Good health is not a gift to be rationed based on ability to pay." I want to be clear that we are proud to be the medicine cabinet of the world and the home of so many leading biotech and pharmaceutical companies. We are all tremendously grateful for the miraculous breakthroughs that have given us cures to diseases that were once a death sentence. And we know these advances do not come cheap and that research is not easy. But the fact is, Americans pay more than anyone else in the world for prescription drugs. So we have to take a hard look at why that is, and we have to make sure that folks can actually afford these life-saving medicines. These bills will deliver relief at a critical time as prices are rising across the board. We're seeing cost increases in basic necessities like food as well as health care. Everything from hospital and provider prices to insurance premiums and drug costs are going up as well. Not only does that hurt our families, but it also hurts our businesses and, frankly, our state budget. So we're doing everything we can to bring these costs down. As I've said many times, we are laser focused on ensuring New Jersey remains affordable so every family and every senior can realize their American dream, and our seniors in particular can live out their best years right here in New Jersey with dignity. With the help of our extraordinary partners in the legislature, we're continuing to deliver on that promise by making prescription drugs more affordable. With that, please help me welcome an outstanding leader and a great partner in governing this state, the Speaker of the General Assembly, Craig Coughlin.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you all for coming out. This is a really big day. It really is an important day for so many people in the state of New Jersey. And I want to thank all of you, of course, for being here, but I want to especially thank the folks at Citizen Action and AARP. You are dogged when it comes to sticking up for the people that you represent. You're relentless, dogged, and that has paid off with so many great successes. So thank you for being that. You're laughing at me, Maureen. But it's true, and everyone should be as fortunate to have such great advocates as you. To my colleagues who are here, thank you, Paul and Annette and Angela, for being here. I want to mention a couple of my colleagues in the legislature who aren't here. Senators Poe and Greenstein and Gopal, Assemblyman Benson, Danielson, Karabinchik, Moen, Assemblywoman Mascara, and Assemblywoman Reynolds Jackson, all of whom, in addition to the outstanding legislators and friends that we have here, in Assemblyman McKee and Assemblyman Fryman, who you're going to hear from in just a few minutes, had an important part in tackling this issue, which has been around for a long time and has long deserved the attention it has now finally gotten, because it's going to be so impactful on people. We have made making New Jersey more affordable the cornerstone of our efforts throughout this last term. And I think it was evidenced again in this year's budget when we tackled some awfully thorny issues. And as the governor alluded, we expanded PAD and Senior Gold. We've tackled property taxes both in Anchor and now in Stay as we continue to move forward and make New Jersey even better than the incredibly great state it is. We know it's a great place to raise a family. We know it's a great place to have a business and to raise children. We have the best education system. We're working hard to make it the best place for seniors to retire to, and this will help. Because what we do today, when the governor signs these bills today, which is the product of the governor and the legislature working together and listening to experts and advocates to make a difference for people's lives, we're gonna do just that. The new laws provide protections from price gouging and guarantee access to life-saving medications. Patients who manage their chronic illnesses, shouldn't have to worry about sudden spikes in the cost of medicine or changes to their coverage. We're also taking other steps to increase oversight of PBMs, who have an enormous influence over the final prescription price to consumers, as well as on our drug manufacturers and pharmacies. And we move forward today with the Drug Affordability Council, which will have long-term impact and will protect the progress that we've made in identifying new ways to help patients and families across the state. I think beyond all of that, what this will mean is it'll take a little of the burden off of people who day in and day out have to worry about how they're going to provide for their health care. It is one of those things that is just challenging and debilitating. I talk about it a lot when I talk about food insecurity. For those of you who know, we've made that another cornerstone throughout the time I've had the privilege of being the speaker. But when you're consumed by things that make you think about them each and every hour of each and every day, it doesn't allow you to live fully your best life and to make your life as full and as rich as it can be. Think about that senior. Think about the person that Crystal had talked about, sitting there every day having to worry about how they're going to pay for their prescription drugs in the future, worrying about how they're going to provide for a loved one, a grandparent or a parent or a child, how they go through that each and every day. This will help ease that burden just a little bit, and everything we can do will have an incredibly profound effect. So thank you all to everyone who made this all possible. It's a privilege to be with you this morning. Thank you very much. Let's keep up the good work and keep New Jersey moving forward in an affordable way. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Well said, and thank you for your leadership in knowing Evelyn and Phyllis and their colleagues as well as I do. Dogged is a very appropriate adjective. I say that with affection. You need both chambers firing on all cylinders, and representing the Senate today, another outstanding leader. Please help me welcome Senator Joe Vitale. Thanks, pal.
Hey, Governor. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Governor Murphy and Speaker Coughlin, and all those who attend today's this wonderful and eventful bill signing. It means a great deal to the legislators who have worked on this, and the advocates who helped to make this happen. It couldn't be a better day. You know, we have worked, and I've worked with Citizen Action and ARP on a variety of different bills over the years as chair of the Health Committee, and they are and have been real partners in making reforms happen in New Jersey. We just recently, the governor signed the bill to cover all kids, and so there is no reason in this state why any child who is eligible does not have health insurance. That's because of the work of them, the work of the legislature, and thankfully the governor who partnered with us and signed that legislation. So they deserve a round of applause for their efforts as well. Pat, good. But it matters. You know, it matters. We talk about affordability, and you know we have a robust family care program in this state that covers all kids and adults as well, and those parents who cannot afford health insurance on their own, whose employers may not offer it or do not offer it, but now having to be the ability to cover all kids, and that also includes children who are not documented in this state, to also get the coverage as well through the work of Commissioner Edelman and her team at DHS. We have seen over the years what elements of affordability mean to the people that we represent and that we seek to help. And so this is one of those most important issues today. And doing them in tandem, all those bills together as one. Let's cap the copay, whether it's the Review Commission and the others. We had a bill 3 years ago that capped the copays, but it was a higher amount. And now it's down to almost $1 a day, which is just incredible. And so, you know, doing this together as one element really helps us to drive this issue forward, to understand the cost of medication and how we can address that going forward. You know, we always talk about sort of anecdotally that we know that pharmaceutical companies have to make a profit. If they don't make a profit, they can't invest in research and development. But it's at the same time, it's all very relative in terms of, but it really hits home though, when those costs are out of reach for thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of New Jerseyans, be they younger people or, in this case, senior citizens. So I can't say enough of the work of the legislature, my colleagues who really put their nose to the grindstone, to the Speaker and his team, to Senate President Scutari, and ultimately the Governor and his team, Shabnam and others, who are really very smart, and the advocates as well. So thank you for this day. It's a great day, and looking forward to making New Jersey, as the Speaker has said, more affordable as an element of all this reform that we've been doing. So thanks, everyone, for being here. Appreciate it, Governor. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. And I think you heard both from Senator Vitale and the Speaker. This is part of a bigger tapestry. Clearly it's prescription drugs. It's making sure all of our kids, regardless of their status, are covered, which is the way it should be. It's property tax relief, especially for seniors. This is part of a bigger picture. It's an important piece of it, but it is a bigger tapestry. Thank you again, Joe. Let's hear from two of the folks in the Assembly without whom we would not be here today. Let's begin with West Orange's own, a great leader and a great friend, Assemblyman John McKeon. Loved Friday night also.
Governor, thank you so much. And yeah, it was the honor of my life to be mayor of this town for 12 years. And with that, I'll again acknowledge our first female mayor of West Orange, Sue McCartney. She's also the tallest in a very long time as well. And I think Council President Williams is here and Councilwoman Scarpa. It's good to see you both, too. Governor, you mentioned that tapestry, and I think back to 5 years ago when you became our governor, and it was a time easy to forget, but we were all very worried about the Affordable Care Act. It was under attack, and what you made certain happen with all of our cooperation was that lifetime caps would be imbued in New Jersey law, that there'd be pre-existing conditions, we'd be protected from that, that we'd be able to keep our young adults on our insurance policies, and then you took on a reinsurance project that went to the individual market, and instead of it going up by 12%, came down by 6%, and because of the Cover New Jersey program, literally, as we speak here, there's 361,000 lives that are insured that probably otherwise wouldn't have been. So for that, Governor, we thank you. And just a fun historic note, you know, it's pretty cool, right, for have one governor here in West Orange today. We actually, in this very room, have two. So again, let's give a rounding applause to Governor Richard Cody. Speaker, I thought of you this weekend relative to being in a Stop and Shop, and somebody that works in a school cafeteria in Point Pleasant was just telling me how excited she was about being able to feed the children. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of what you stand for and what you did. And regardless of what we say as our leader, we wouldn't all be here today but for you. And I very much thank you. And I'm jealous of you not because you're Speaker, but you got me by one grandkid, so I'm working on that. Okay. Senator Vitale, you know, calling other people smart, you're really a hero. I mean, this area, you're so knowledgeable and are such a leader. I was proud to join you just with, we'll have to see the governor after, I don't know if he signed him yet, but on the Small Business Insurance Act that you just authored, and I was happy to join you on our side of the House, and you really are somebody that's a true treasure to the state, and appreciate that much. Senator Singleton isn't here. Now, we started this off, as you remembered, in Willingboro, which is his hometown. We're very close to the football field where Troy was a real legend. So I was going to tell Troy that our football field here in West Orange is only a mile away, where I was not a legend. But I tried very hard, if nothing else. And funny enough, we co-authored an article that went to the Star-Ledger, an editorial about this legislation. And they forgot to put his name as a signator. And I was like, holy moly, he's the one guy that could catch and kill me. I'm like, but we talk about citizen action and AARP about being dogged, and I really say this, and he's not here, and I'm saying it nonetheless because it's true. I don't think any of this would have happened but for him. He was incredible as it relates to stick-doing, and particularly as it relates to the Pharmacy Review Board. He really did an amazing job. And Roy, speaking of being so smart, Roy's a lifelong, as it relates to part of the insurance industry, retired, and they're sorry that they let him go because he's got such insight, and I'm sure you'll hear from him in a couple of minutes on some details that have really put together legislation that's really, breaking the ceiling. It was amazing, Roy. It's a privilege, and all my friends and colleagues that are here, I'm buying lunch next door afterward. It's all good to see you. You know, the way we can talk about numbers and statistics, but the way this means something are some experiences that I've had, in my life. A 37-year-old woman from the area, she told me when I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, I didn't cry. But when I found out about the financial toxicity, I broke down. 34-year-old that's insulin dependent, She takes vials, literally, after she siphons them, puts them in a refrigerator, and then after about 10 or 12 are there, will go in with a syringe and try to make one. I think Ann, my wife, is here somewhere. Her sister's son, who happily just got out of college and is going to be one of our great teachers. I see how their family has struggled in affording insulin and how they worry when they're not there to support him what the long-term future is going to be. You know, if Havarin, if you have hepatitis C, you know what that is? 9,000 more a year in the United States. Abistan, a cancer-fighting drug, and here it's 10 times more expensive than Great Britain, and here's where it was developed. 25 years ago, a CEO of a bio startup was asked, in response to that, he had developed, or his company did, the first drug that was going to cost more than $100,000 a year to administer. And they said, well, why would you do that? And you know what he answered? Because I can. And there lies the problem. We are the only country in the world not to regulate drug prices. And on top of that, we provide 8 or 9 years of protection for that particular medication through patents. It's a toxic mist. And you know what, Governor? I agree with you. We should celebrate pharma. The innovations are amazing, the economic engine that they are, but they're not car manufacturers. It's not like, hey, if you can't afford a Mercedes, well, you can't. It's health care. And I don't know about the rest of you, but that's a basic human right, and which is why it bears regulation. The piece of this, you start to get into the PBMs, and it makes me crazy to think about this, but the pharmacy benefit managers were put into place, right, because they were going to be the entity that dealt with this complicated issue, and it is complicated. They were going to be the ones that stood in front of, on our behalf as consumers, and to make sure prices were going to go down, they were going to negotiate. So, I mean, how does that happen, right? These PBMs, most of which that are owned, by the way, by insurance companies, they step in and then, what a system. They create these quote-unquote formularies that then set up these tiers. And what does the manufacturer do? They set up, this is the greatest acronym ever, right? The wholesale acquisition cost. What's that acronym? WAC, right? The only people getting whacked are all of us. And when it comes to it, as opposed to clinicians and doctors that are supposed to set up these tiers, there's room for discretion. And then they get into, well, let's negotiate off of that. Okay, well, that WAC price ends up starting here. It's like a car sticker price, because the manufacturers know they have to negotiate down, so they set it unbelievably high. And do you think the PBMs care? They don't, because they get a percentage of what they, quote-unquote, save. Well, now, under your bill and under the Senate's bill and what the governor will sign, those profits, if you will, are going to kind of get plowed in and go back to us where they belong. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, because this is going to just open the curtain and look at this Byzantine system, and we're going to know. And there's going to be reporting, and as we go forward, there'll be more changes to come. I'll just conclude with something that's interesting. It's 100 years ago when Dr. Fred Bantling, a Canadian, actually isolated insulin. And a year later, for the first time, he injected a 14-year-old, and that made a world of difference in that individual's life and the life of millions and millions after. And Dr. Bantling felt as if taking a patent on insulin would have violated his Hippocratic Oath. And he kind of ceded it to 2 medical students that he was mentoring, and those medical students felt the same, and they sold the patent for $1 to the University of Toronto. He's quoted as saying, insulin doesn't belong to me, it belongs to the world. And so I don't know what Dr. Bantling would think, maybe we do, about the fact that 1 in 4 seniors in here, as we sit in the great Degnan House, literally cutting their pills in half. Well, today, Governor, my colleagues, that all starts to change. So God bless you all.
That was awesome, including in its starkness. But I hope Dr. Bantling is watching from upstairs. Thank you for your leadership and for your great words. One more member of the legislature, an important member in this fight. Please help me welcome another outstanding leader, Assemblyman Roy Fryman. Roy? Well done, buddy.
Thank you, Governor. One of the advantages of following my legislature and my colleagues from the legislature is that it certainly cuts down on my prepared remarks of what I was going to give. And John, thank you very much for telling me what I need to be talking about right now. I was proud, and I am proud to have worked on this legislation. And the reason being is that we talk and we mention that these pieces of legislation are around affordability and they're around access. And we talk about the fact this is on medication and prescriptions that dramatically improve people's lives and the difference between life and death. And we talk about that, and we're not being overly dramatic. Crystal, you talked about with your daughter and insulin. I will share with you, in my life, my wife is type 1 diabetic. I know her fear of looking in the refrigerator, seeing are there vials of insulin, and the concern that she has around reading reports, will she be able to get her insulin? It is a very, very real fear that she has. And so this issue around access, we have to solve this. This shouldn't be something that we should be facing with in the United States and in New Jersey. We must resolve this. And we started this conversation, it started a while back. We got a lot of the interested parties together because we had a lot of conversations around this. And you can imagine there were a lot of differing opinions about this issue. And people came from it from different perspectives, and they had different thoughts on it. I'm glad to tell you that there were 3 things that we had universal agreement on from all parties. The first one was everyone agreed that this was a very complicated issue, that the idea of how to get medications through the channel, through the pipeline, through the pricing was very, very complex. The second thing that everyone universally agreed on, that pricing was out of control, that it was higher than anywhere else in the world, and that we needed to fix this problem. And the third thing that everyone agreed with was it wasn't their fault. It was someone else's fault. Now, obviously, that wasn't going to be resolved unto itself. So we needed to take positive steps. And these pieces of legislation do that. I don't want to repeat and go over the things that have been discussed before. But we are making the right steps going forward. I do want to say that it would be wrong for us to sit here, and I think it would be overly dramatic and overly exuberant to claim victory today, because I don't think we're claiming victory. But I do believe that we can feel very confident and we can claim progress and significant progress on this topic. And that is exactly what we need to do. We need to continue to make progress. And the fact that we're doing disclosure and the fact that we're requiring licensing and we're putting caps in place and putting prescription review board in place and oversight, all these things are very, very meaningful progress, and I'm very proud to be associated with that. And Governor, thank you very much for signing this today.
I would underscore the last comment, Roy, you made, which is this is not declaring victory. Huge progress, huge steps in the right direction. But one of the steps we're taking today is going to be shining a light on some places that have been pretty dark and opaque forever. And with that light and with the lessons we learned from that, my gut tells me there are more steps we'll be able to take. So thank you for that. Last but not least, certainly not least, representing New Jersey Citizen Action, their healthcare program director, please help me welcome Laura Waddell. Laura.
Thank you all so much. Oh, I'm a little bit shorter than everybody else. This is such a big day and a big deal. During the long time that we've been working on this issue, we found out about a community in Hunterdon County that had to start the equivalent of a food bank that for medications, just so its residents could afford the prescription drugs they needed. That town stepped up, but what about those who don't live there or who are not one of the lucky few to learn about or get accepted into a special drug affordability program? This includes patients like Susan in Camden County, who is among the, as Governor Murphy said, 1 in 4 New Jerseyans who has sometimes having to choose between her life-saving medications and paying for groceries or even being able to do her laundry. Susan had a stroke not too long ago. She can't always afford her medications, and missing one of her preventative drugs may have been the cost. There are so many more like Susan. More than half of our residents are concerned about being able to afford prescription medications. And we know that the affordability issue is far more severe in our communities of color. It's been a long road, but in a few moments, Governor Murphy will sign into law legislation that will finally put us on the path of making prescription drugs more affordable for all New Jerseyans. By creating the Drug Affordability Council, we enable a team of experts to publicly recommend reforms and policies for our leaders and lawmakers so that they could pursue to help rein in runaway drug prices. This law very effectively combines transparency with action and accountability, which is exactly what New Jersey needs, because drugs don't work if people can't afford them. And we applaud Governor Murphy for supporting meaningful prescription drug affordability reform, and we thank Senator Singleton and Assemblyman McKeon for tirelessly championing this legislation. And I must give a shout out to Maura Collins-Grew from New Jersey Citizen Action, who has worked on this from its inception. And we thank all of our New Jersey for Affordable Drugs campaign partners and the countless grassroots advocates and activists whose work made this day possible. We know that there is more work to do, and we will, I was going to say vigilantly, but I'll take doggedly, continue to work with both Governor Murphy and our legislature throughout the implementation of this legislation and on this issue. But today, we join with everyone here and celebrate the big step we've taken to make prescription drugs more affordable for everyone in our state. Thank you.
I see Maura back there. Maura, I echo the hosanna from Laura. Laura, thank you so much. I want to thank Team Degnan for hosting us so graciously here today. And as they say in Hollywood, it's a wrap. Let's get these things signed. on so I can see what I'm doing. So first up is Senate Bill 1614. The synopsis requires health insurance carriers to provide coverage for EpiPens, asthma inhalers, limits costs for health insurance coverage of insulin. Sponsors include Joe Vitale, Nellie Poe, who was mentioned, Troy Singleton, Linda Greenstein in the Senate, and in the Assembly, John McKeon, Rob Karavinchek, Annette Quijano, and Paul Moriarty, who are also with us here today. First pen goes to our leadoff batter today, Crystal McCullough. Crystal, congratulations. Next pen goes to our cleanup hitter from New Jersey Citizen Action, Laura Waddell.
Guys, these cell phones gotta go down.
Assembly Speaker Craig Coughlin. I hear you. Assemblywoman Annette Quijano. Congratulations. I love that. And Assemblyman all the way in from down south, Paul Moriarty. Paul?
Excuse me.
Okay.
Guys, these cell phones gotta come down a little bit. These
One more
two.
time.
The cell phones are blocking
Okay.
all of our shots.
Next up is Senate Bill S-1615. The synopsis established certain data reporting requirements for prescription drug supply chain, establishes the Drug Affordability Council, and appropriates $1.5 million. Sponsors again in the Senate, Troy Singleton, Joe Vitale, Nellie Poe, and the Assembly, John McKeon, Angela McKnight, Bill Moen, and Paul Moriarty. Who's to my left, and there aren't many people who get to my left. Making sure you're paying attention out there. First up is Brian Olivero, who's the Executive Director of the Garden State Pharmacy Owners. Brian, where are you, buddy? Next one, Darren, you with me? Yes. Okay. Get this one, if you could, to Troy Singleton. Let's hear it for Troy in a second. Next up, West Orange's own Assemblyman John McKeon. John. Plenty of space there, actually. Angela's behind me. I love that. Give him the stage. Assemblywoman and future Senator Angela McKnight. Angela. All right. Keep track of these. Next up, Assembly Bill 536, also Senate Bill 1616. Synopsis establishes new transparency standards for pharmacy benefits manager business practices. Sponsored in the Assembly, Roy Fryman, John McKeon, Gabby Muscara, Joe Danielson, Dan Benson, Berlita Reynolds-Jackson, and Angela McKnight. In the Senate, Joe Vitale, Troy Singleton, Nellie Poe, and Vin Gopal. We'll give one, Darren, get this to the County Executive, Joe DiVincenzo, if you could, as a favor for hosting us here so graciously in Essex County. Our host mayor, let's hear one more time from Mayor Sue McCarthy. Sue. Senator Joe Vitale. Joe, congratulations. Assemblyman Roy Fryman. Roy, right beside me. And this one is special because when it was cold, dark, and lonely, he was there for me, and I will never forget that. And in many respects, without him, I'm not Governor Dick Cody. with that, I'm happy to say that these three laws, these three bills, are the law of the land. That's all she wrote. Don't lose those. Congrats to you.
Start going back there.
Thank you for having us. Thank you so much. Congratulations to everybody.
Will I have a photographer for the AMO?